Hi. Before going to video, please subscribe to my channel for more interesting stuff. And the question is, what is your scariest I'm not alone experience?
I was a closing manager for a restaurant/bar in a notoriously haunted town. One night when locking the front door I heard a man's voice. Thinking that a drunk guy was in the bathroom still, I said hello a few times while checking the bathroom to find nothing. Now thinking that something more sinister was about to happen since I was alone with money, I ran to the front door to grab the cook from the parking lot and heard "Don't do that." We searched the entire place and checked cameras to find absolutely nothing. Still chills me to this day. Exams during uni. My roommate had gone home for the Christmas break cause his exams finished early, so I was supposed to be alone in the house. At some point his girlfriend came over and decided to crash in his room. Just use the key he gave her. I didn't know he had given her one. Anyways, she entered when I wasn't home, and apparently she was under the impression I had gone home for the break already myself. Yeah, so I didn't notice anything. Came in from wherever I was in the washroom and she heard me. She got scared and thought I was a burglar. Next thing I know, I opened my bathroom door and she's standing there with a knife from the kitchen yelling at me. It was only 2 seconds before we both realized what was up. But I swear if I hadn't just taken a shit, I would have shit myself. Was exploring an abandoned hotel with some friends. It was night so the whole place was pitch black other than the flashlights. We were fucking around playing hide and seek. I had already been found so I was following the searcher around while he looked. He heard movement in one of the rooms, and the door was locked. He decided to be dramatic and kick in the door. The person in there was not any of us. My friend freaked out so much he tripped trying to run away. We scared the squatter too because he bolted. As freaky as it was for us, must have been 1000x worse for the squatter. Minding his own business when suddenly, footsteps in the dark. They stop outside your door. Then wham, your door is gone and someone's shining a flashlight in your face. Anyway, learned later squatters and homeless people love that place. The city eventually demolished it, and even though they cleared it before demolition, they still killed 3 homeless people that were hiding in there when the building came down. When I was in high school I woke up to a man entering my room. My dad died when I was young and I have all sisters so there are no men in my house. I was still half asleep and trying to figure out if I was dreaming or not when he started to approach my bed. I was about to scream and when I realized who it was. My sister's boyfriend. He was in the army at the time and made a surprise visit and had driven like 15 hours straight. He was sleepwalking and thought he was getting back in bed with my sister. It was funny afterwards, but scared the fuck out of me at the time. Back in grad school, I was closing Jimmy John's at 2 a.m. with the manager and other delivery biker, both large dudes. I'm 5 feet 6 inches and female. Manager told me to take the trash out. We had a set of stairs in back that went down to a garage which opened into the alley where the dumpster was. We were told 100 times never to prop the downstairs door open, but it invariably happened that someone from us or the downstairs sushi place propped it open while taking out the trash. Anyways, I go down with some of the bags into the dark garage and see the door open and hear scuffling from somewhere in the dark. I'm trying to convince myself it's just a rat, but it sounds bigger. I'm about halfway to the open alley door when the scuffling starts sounding like it's getting closer and I just say, "Oh fuck that," drop the trash, and nope the fuck back up the stairs, through the back room, and into the kitchen. I absolutely refuse to go back down unless one of the dudes goes with me. Manager is frustrated with me, but tells the other biker to go with me. We open the back door and come face to face with a homeless guy in the room. I used to work overnight security for a building that was a grain exchange in the early 1900s. Part of my job was doing a walkthrough of the entire building a few times throughout the night. The building closed at 9 p.m. and the security person before me does a sweep to make sure that everyone is out before I start my shift at 11 p.m. The building owner didn't like to have the lights on at night, so when I would do my checks I would just walk around using a flashlight. One night I did my first check around 1 a.m. and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Then at 3 a.m. I was doing my second check. Down in the basement there was a back hallway that was a row of bank vaults. We always keep the doors on these closed and that was how they were on my first check. But on the second check the 2 on the end were wide open. I walked down and checked the first one and as I was swinging the flashlight towards the opening I saw the outline of someone standing just inside the door of the second one staring right at me. I tried not to react because I wasn't armed at all, so I shined my flashlight around the first open vault a bit, which thankfully also didn't have someone hiding in it, and then just backed up like I was done checking it out. The person didn't move, so as soon as I was around the next corner I ran as fast as I could back to the security office to call for backup. It took them a while to get there and when we went back down the person or persons were gone. The really chilling part for me was that the only way they could have been in there is if they had entered before the building closed at 9 p.m., which means they were in there somewhere with me when I was walking around for my 1 a.m. check too, and I had no idea. Most likely it was just a homeless person looking for a place to sleep for the night and had probably thought I wouldn't be around again after my first check, but still really unsettling because when that happens we usually find them right after closing, and this one avoided us for at least 2 separate checks, not to mention what might have happened if I hadn't noticed him before. It would have required an immediate confrontation down in an empty dark vault. Apologies in advance for the long read. I used to work security for this construction site that was being turned into apartments. Typically, the workers would forget/neglect, I have my suspicions, to lock the doors to some apartments. So, every now and again, I would have to close them, but I couldn't lock them due to not being given a unit key. Hated this company. Well, one night, I made a round and closed all the doors, closed some windows, locked up some gates, etc., and then, on my next round, one of the doors I had closed was left open, half swinging in the wind. It was always dead silent at that site, not a single sound in the night, but I could hear the creaking of some floorboards, the shuffling of feet, and light breathing. It scared the shit out of me. I always carried pepper spray, and a flashlight that doubled as a baton and taser. And so I opened the door, turned on my flashlight, and stepped inside. Security. "If there is anyone in here, come out now, or you will be tased," I shouted out, but received no reply. All of a sudden, the sounds had stopped, and I thought I had them. I activated my taser a couple times to try and startle them out, but there was nothing. I went through every room in that 3-bed unit. Not a single thing was out of place. Each window was closed and latched. The closets were empty, the rooms are unfurnished, and the cabinets had no doors. I even checked the balcony with no sign of anything amiss. No kind of animal or person was anywhere in that room. Everything except the front door was locked. But the doors were brand new. There's no way they could have opened. I spent the rest of that night in my car, waiting for the sun to break over the horizon. Fuck that site. One night in Afghanistan, on my base, the bus wasn't running, so I had to walk to an airfield in the dead of night by myself for my work shift. The airfield was a long walk away and it was a blackout base, so it was pitch black outside. About halfway into the walk I could hear the light sound of footsteps on both sides of me. I kept walking and gripped my rifle, but it wouldn't really do good except to use as a bat because my company hadn't been issued ammo yet. More and more footsteps started increasing all around me, but they were tracking me from a far enough distance that I couldn't see them. After about 5 minutes of slowly creeping along as silent as I can, I saw a small figure on the road blocking my path. I knew it was time to get ready as a fight was about to be on. As I kept walking forward, I start to hear a low growling as I see it is a large wild dog in front of me. Just as I hear something bolt towards me from behind, and I just swing hard and low to clock another dog hard in the head to get it to back off. After striking the dog, I finally pull my flashlight to see that I was surrounded by a small pack of wild dogs. The dogs started trying to make false dashes towards me to catch me off my guard as another would try to circle behind me. At this point I just had to keep pushing forward slowly cause I knew running would provoke the prey drive into full power. Thankfully they finally backed off completely once I started getting closer to the hangar where everyone else was. I was working an overnight shift in a bar/hotel on Edinburgh's Royal Mile. The hotel was built above the vaults, a place that was walled up when the plague came to town. Anyway, it was about 3 a.m. and I'd cleaned everything down in the bar, set up the space for breakfast, and I wouldn't have anything else to do for about an hour when the cleaners would show up. Anyway, we had a set of stairs that went down to the toilets. They were built into the top level of the vaults. I sat down at a table with my back to the stairs when I heard footsteps from the stairs. I turned around and saw a little boy rush down the stairs. It scared the living shit out of me and I refused to do a night shift again, at least when I was by myself. The other staff never saw the boy, but a few people saw a big shadow flitting around corners. We used to call that one Mr. T. Not that scary, but spooked me out. Alone in my room, was tired and lazy, wanted to go to bed but don't want to get the lights. So I jokingly said, "Can someone turn off the lights?" Then the lights flicker and turned off. I was so scared literally didn't move for a few seconds. I think it was about to be replaced anyway, but the timing was too coincidental. Scary. Vape. It was the beginning of hunting season. I live in Fayette, Alabama, so Teresa, a lot of woods and no neighbors. It's one of those rural areas I live and hunted in. Well, I hunt for at least 4 days before going back home, so I bring a compound bow and a 30-30 LVR action. Well, as I was going to one of my designated camping location, it takes about 3 to 4 hours to get to on foot. I start hearing crunches in the woods. I think nothing about it cause birds hop on the ground for food, but then I stopped and it stopped. A little spooked I just keep walking. Vape after 3 or 4 hours I made it to my location. To see it has been used by an animal, which is fair game cause I was gone from that site for a while, so I shrug it off thinking maybe it left. Well, about nightfall I'm spooked cause I've heard noises all day and that it started getting dark and I forgot my flint. So I just decided to eat my dry meat. It was homemade jerky from a squirrel, and go sleep. I didn't have a tent cause I made a shooting house out of falling trees. Well, about around morning I smell something awful, so I look outside of my blind and see a mountain lion, so I shot up in the air and watched it run. I immediately started packing and waited till daylight. Well, it's daylight and I start looking for more tracks. I found them. It followed me from where I heard the noise. It followed me for 4 hours. I was spooked and proceeded with going home. TL/Doctor, stalked by mountain lion. This starts the opposite way round. I was navigating the London Underground system, something I've done a million times. I got to Leicester Square, which is about 15 stories below ground level at its lowest point, and everyone who got off the train with me turned to go up to the street while I went down to the next platform. It's a very old station with sharp turns and thin corridors, and they've adjusted for that by placing convex mirrors in every corner so you don't run into anyone. There are no opportunities to turn off and go down a different route. I was completely alone in what was usually a very busy station, and it was freaking me out. I was walking quickly. I wanted to get to the platform because it was almost silent when there were no trains and I was desperate to get into a more comfortable environment. At one point, I turned a corner and decided, for some godforsaken reason, to look up at the mirror as I did. There was someone behind me. They were walking very slowly in comparison to me, and they hadn't been behind me when I'd started on the single available path through the station. I didn't get a good look, but they were definitely there, and I didn't look again. They didn't emerge onto the platform before the next train came, so I never saw them again. Oof. Okay. Not sure how to tell this story. It's a little supernatural. I was a freshman in high school leaving the house to walk to school. It was dark, early in the morning at the beginning of the school year. Still warm. As I close the front door I see a black shadow in my periphery. I look to my left and nothing is there. A voice speaks in my ear. Go get your phone. Now. A few things about this decade. Phones were commonly pay-as-you-go, meaning you had to buy minutes that you used up for calls and texts. Without buying minutes the phone was useless. Which mine was. I thought to myself, you're hearing voices and this is something that happens to schizophrenics, what the frick? The voice told me, clear as day, you don't have to believe I am real. There is nothing to be lost in grabbing your phone. It's on the desk a foot from the door. Okay, disembodied voice. You're right. You're asking me to do something that requires no effort. If I listen and nothing happens, no big deal. If I listen and something happens where I need it, then good on me for listening. I grab my useless brick Nokia phone. I start walking to school. The moon is out. I sing to myself. I always used to walk in the middle of the road so I can be seen by cars if they turn on the street. I also walk in the center because I had anxious visions of a bad guy hiding inside one of the vehicles parked on the sides of the streets. They would reach out, grab me, and speed away. At this age, I was tall but very thin and shy. I was a good target and knew it. As I walk down a three-way street I see an orange light at the tree line at the end of the road. I wasn't alone. I was confused by the light until I realize it's a cigarette butt falling to the ground. A man in a hoodie is walking towards me. It was too warm for a hoodie. He was wearing a ball cap and sunglasses under the hood. There was no sun out yet. I knew who he was by his walk. He was a guy who stared at me whenever I would walk home from school past his apartment. My heart stopped. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and the screen lit up. I pretended to text. His footsteps stopped when he saw I had my phone. I cut across the grass instead of approaching him at the corner. That same voice screamed at me. Run. I hesitated. The voice screamed again. Its voice filling my mind. I listen this time. I beat pavement. The man starts running after me. I go on autopilot. I think of nothing. I am only focused on creating as much distance as I can. I hear a van start up and someone smashes the gas. The man is still chasing me. A big van begins pulling out of a car park in front of me. I realize they are connected. Small whimpers escape me as I realize how fucked I am. I breeze past the van and run down a side street with a low wall near another car park. I hop over it and run across someone's backyard. I make it to a main road that leads straight to my high school. But the sidewalk is right next to the road. I cut into the nearest subdivision. This subdivision has a walkway that also connects to my school's football field which I retreat to. As I run into the subdivision I slow down as I do not hear anyone chasing me. No footsteps. Nothing. I process what happened in a detached way. I realize I hadn't misunderstood anything. That guy had no business being by that tree line across the street from his apartment. If he wanted to smoke he would have smoked on his balcony. He was waiting for me. He must have also been watching me walk to school so he would know what time I would be walking past his apartment as well as when I walked home. He had no reason to be dressed like that. I was nearly kidnapped. From then on I took a different route to and from school. Much longer. But with more cover. The guy was evicted for drugs a few months later and arrested. I wasn't alone. I always listened to my intuition and I have heard that voice since. Always helping me out. TLDR, creepy neighbor learned my school schedule and tried to kidnap me on my way to school. Was saved by disembodied voice. Edit. Thanks for sharing your experiences too. I want to reply but Reddit won't let me, so here is my comment. I think of it two ways. If it was some formless being helping me, I am grateful. I also wonder if it was just my subconscious personifying my most basic instinct that warns me of danger. If that's the case, I am grateful for my animal instinct. I approach all good fortune with humility and gratitude. I am a speck in a sea. For some reason, the universe was kind and it does not have to be. I have a lot of unexplainable stories and I choose to accept these events at face value. They do not prove the existence of all dogma. They do not prove all stories of ghosts. They do not prove or add credibility to anyone else's stories. And just because I experience supernatural things, it does not mean I should blindly believe anyone else's stories without skepticism. I can only believe what happened to me. To everyone else, and any story someone else tells me, it is simply a story. A weird happenstance that science might explain someday, and it may not. The storyteller is not a liar, but I always acknowledge we are imaginative creatures and our brains can perceive an event incorrectly. Some stories though, there is no other way to look at it but it was supernatural. Reality is a flexible and odd place. I choose to remain in the center of something is going on but I don't know what it is, but I know I hate all religion. Do not cheapen your acts of kindness by hoping that a deity is watching. Do not forego skepticism because you have been aided by an unseen force. If gods exist, they exist because they are beyond ego and do not care if you believe in them or not. Question everything. Especially yourself. Always be grateful you're here. Your very existence is so highly unlikely it borders a miracle.
Thanks for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe for more videos.